Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that grabs our attention. I'm Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and Compass is a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all these topics and more. You can find us at CompassKnox.com, joined remotely today by Jesse Mayshark, Compass co-founder and founder of the Progressive South. So, Jesse, this is Easter weekend. It's Good Friday when we're taping this. It'll be Easter Sunday when it comes out to the public. What's your Easter weekend looking like?
Well, I think my Easter weekend is going to be a continuation of my week, which maybe you can hear in my voice, but has been recovering from some seasonal crud. We talked about allergies last week, and one of the things that can happen from that is stuff moves into your chest. It gets ugly. So, yeah, that's why I am phoning in here. I think I'm going to be just continuing to rest.
Oh, good. Good for you. Do that. Same here, except mine just lodged in my sinuses. I didn't get the...
Yeah, mine started so there. Sadly, they decided to go wandering.
Yeah, it was a rough beginning of the week for me, but nowhere close to what you went through. So glad you're on the mend and keep resting all through the weekend. I am sitting in the opulent studios of Barbarian Productions in Rocky Hill, and Lord Seth Barber is our producer, and he is in charge here. Lord Seth, what's it looking like for you on Easter weekend?
I'm going to have lunch with my folks, and then the in-laws are going to stop by for a little bit in the afternoon, and it's going to be a fun day. I'm going to say, to continue on the seasonal allergy situation, probably wash some cars this weekend because they're all turning that yellow-green that they do every year, where you need to wash your car like every other day or it doesn't look like the color you bought.
Yeah.
But, so... I don't have the sinus issues that you guys have. I just have dirty cars, I guess. So that's, I feel like I'm ahead on this game.
I was about to say count your blessings. So anyway, we had quite a bit that happened last week in Knoxville and Knox County. We'll be talking about some of those things. One of them is going to be the news coming out from KPD that crime is way down at the beginning of the year. So we'll talk about those and give some numbers out. Also in the state legislature, there are a couple of bills dealing with vouchers and charter schools. They're moving through the process that could change some things in the school systems here. Also, it was came out last week that a development firm is going to has plans to build a large apartment complex where the Kerbela Temple is in South Knoxville, overlooking the Gay Street Bridge and the Tennessee River, and it's a big project, and there's some folks who aren't so happy about it, but we'll look at it. Also, the Councilwoman Amelia Parker was pushing for a resolution at City Council on alternative response and the proposed plan for establishing a program that would allow non-police response to non-emergency calls. But he hit a setback, so we'll talk about that. We'll begin, though, talking about a candidate forum that was held last week, hosted by the League of Women Voters of Knoxville and Knox County and partner organizations, and it involved the candidates for Knox County mayor, and one of the early candidate forums where they were all invited. Not all attended, but all were invited. On the Republican side, Commissioners Larson J. and Kim Frazier were there and participated. School board member Betsy Henderson was not able to attend. She had a scheduling conflict, and so she wasn't there. And Bo Hawk, who is the Democratic, going to be the Democratic nominee, is the only. He has no challenger in the primary, but he was also there. So the forum was relatively low key. There were no big fireworks or anything. They talked a lot about infrastructure and the economy. Jay and Frazier primarily, especially, talked about how the county needs to really emphasize and pay for the infrastructure needs. Talked about the amount of needs there are. There was a recent report that came out, a state report that came out that said, Knox County has $5 billion in infrastructure needs that are either being addressed or need to be addressed. And Knox County does not have $5 billion to do that. So Frazier, she, kind of earned her chops before being elected as an advocate for responsible planning, and she pointed to the need to go through the advanced Knox process that is going to wind up this summer, and emphasizing, this is not going to change things overnight, but it will change things and it will help. Jay proposed quadrupling the paving budget because the county only paves like 45 miles of road a year, and
right, they pave fewer miles than the city does. And the county has more miles of roads overall than the city does.
Yeah, and that's just paving. That's not
right.
That's not one of the things when when proposals for subdivisions in the unincorporated part of Knox County come up, either at Planning Commission or at the County Commission. One of the complaints that area residents always have about them is the road's too narrow, the road's too curvy, the road's too this, the road's too that. And, just paving the road that's too curvy just still doesn't do anything about the curves. So, I mean, kind of modernizing the old wagon tracks turned motor vehicle roads, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and the county just it's Chris Caldwell, the budget director, the finance director, has said it's going to be tight. We really we don't have the money to do that. Plus, and one thing nobody asked them about this. Which was kind of unfortunate. I thought I didn't formulate the questions. I was just there reporting on it. But no one asked about the debt service. And we've talked about this many times. The debt service is growing. It'll be up over $100 million in the next 4 years. The amount of money in the debt service fund to the reserves to cover rising debt is going to be depleted by then. So there are real challenges to the county's budget, and none of that was actually directly addressed. So
how did they suggest, to the degree that any of them talked about, we need to do more of this or that, how are they going to pay for it?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they always fall back on, and they didn't talk about that a whole lot. But they always fall back on, well, we're going to, take a look at where we can cut and where we can move money around and that sort of thing. But,
we all know that that's not like a real answer, because these kinds of projects they're talking about are millions and millions of dollars, tens, maybe more than tens of millions of dollars in a lot of cases.
Well, and at least two of the people at this forum have access to the budget as it exists. They were part of making the current budget that's there, so they know what's in there already.
Well, the one thing that neither of these will. Betsy Henderson says, I'm not going to propose a tax increase, period.
Right.
So that's off the table. Jay and Frazier are a little more nuanced than that. They say they don't want to raise taxes. They don't think that they would need to raise taxes, but they will to look at ways to be more efficient in how they spend their money, yada yada. And we've talked about this before. We've had 8 years of a libertarian, anti-tax libertarian running county government.
I have a little issue with the term libertarian, but okay.
Well,
it's a personal fight.
He calls himself one. And then, and this is, basically we've had, 24 years of, Republican county executive first, now county mayor, who have not raised taxes other than establishing the wheel tax, which Jay wants to eliminate. We haven't had tax increase since 1999. The population's grown exponentially since then. And
the tax rate has plummeted because it keeps getting readjusted down every time there's a reassessment. And, you can do that math a lot of different ways, but I have looked at this before in some detail. And if you compare in constant dollars what a lot of people in Knox County were paying in property taxes 24 years ago versus now, even though theoretically the rate has kind of been held neutral because property values go up, the rate comes down. The reality is, in constant dollars, most people in Knox County are actually paying, it's not just that the rate hasn't gone up, we're paying less in county taxes than we were 24 years ago.
Yeah. And, the early projections now is that the tax rate, of course, they're doing a reappraisal now. Every time there's a reappraisal, as you said, the tax rate is adjusted almost always downward because property values themselves go up, and the revenues have to remain the same. The property tax rate looks like it's going to be around 77 cents per $100 of assessed value. So that's half.
And for comparison, the last time the rate was raised, which was 1999, it was raised up to, I believe it was $3.23 or $3.22, one of those per $100 assessed. And so after this round, if it really goes down to 75 cents, like that's how much the rate has been adjusted down over those years.
Yeah. And all this goes to say that Knox County has rising debt obligations. It has, rising, obviously infrastructure needs, and the revenues aren't going to keep pace of being able to do that, to meet those obligations. That is the key issue facing the next Knox County mayor. And it was Adam Thompson, the county commissioner, last week pointed out, the county mayor does, our budget's $1.1 billion. And that makes it sound like, there's plenty of money in there. Thompson pointed out, really, when you take out the schools, you take out public safety, take out all the, take out the debt, everything we get, it's really a fraction of, maybe a tenth of that is actually what the wiggle room is. And, whoever, I don't know, what, how this is playing out in Republican circles, but, the next mayor is going to have to, as they like to say, make hard choices, but there's really not going to be much of a choice at some point. Maybe not the first year, maybe not the second year, but it's going to be.
I mean, you make cuts or you raise taxes. Like, governments don't have some large magic toolkit of ways to balance those things.
That's true. Anyway, now Bo Hawk was there. Bo Hawk is he's a labor leader. He it's obvious in talking in listening to their responses. Jay and Frazier do have a really firm grasp of the money, how much is available, what they do with it, that sort of thing. Hawk is still learning those things. But his real focus is on making Knox County a place where people can make a living and buy houses, and very, as you might expect, as a labor leader, very job centric in his responses. Thought it was interesting that they invited him because he doesn't have a primary opponent, and this is a primary forum, but it was good for him to get out and meet voters and see kind of how these things work, and as he gears up for the general election, which is going to be in August. So there will be more candidate forums. There's one coming up this week. So over on the city side, as said earlier, Councilwoman Amelia Parker wanted to get things going on establishing an alternative response program. Alternative response is, if you've listened to us very much, is a program where mental health professionals respond to non-emergency calls instead of police officers. And so the city and the county created a task force to look into developing a business model for alternative response. They came up with one. It was released a couple of months ago, and the first phase of it would be phased in. First year would be kind of getting things up and running and training, and it would cost about $450,000 or so. They don't know exactly. That was kind of an estimate on that. And it would, like I said, establishing the entity that was going to do this, because it would be a contractor who would do it. They would have to buy equipment. They would have to train people, that sort of thing. So that would be the first year. And Councilwoman Amelia Parker, who's been the biggest advocate of alternative response, wanted a council to go ahead and move forward with it's a non-binding resolution. Really wouldn't have done anything other than get council on the record saying they wanted the city to move forward with this, and
which would create some pressure for Mayor Kincannon to maybe try to find a way to work it into the budget.
Yes, it would set a level of expectation there, and the council members talked about it and actually split on this. This is it's one of these things that the city already has a co-response program, which pairs a police officer with a specially trained police officer with mental health professional to respond to these types of calls, and that they say is working quite well. And council members, there were some council members who questioned the need to invest in a new program when that one's already in place and doing well. And it ended up, and it's kind of interesting, we'll get back to Mayor Kincannon in a second, the Nathan Honeycutt, who is the council member representing West Knoxville, was not there. So there were 8 members there. They split 4-4 vote. It was Parker, Charlie Thomas, Matthew DeBartoleben, and Dennis L. Grant voted for the resolution supporting the alternative response program. Karen Adams, Lynn Fugit, Debbie Helsley, and Doug Lloyd opposed approving the resolution. The interesting thing there is, okay, you're saying, well, where does Mayor Kincannon fall on this? She could have broken the tie. And because under the city charter, if there is a tie on city council, the mayor has the right, the authority to break that tie. She did not, which kills.
So
which
that's
kills
probably an indication that we're not going to see this funded in her forthcoming budget.
It's a tea leaf, and reading those tea leaves, I would not expect to see this in the budget. Although we've got plenty of time before that gets before she announces her budget. And one thing too is, Boyce Evans, the finance director for the city, has, like his counterpart in the county, said this is going to be a very tight budget year. One of the things that's happened is, the local government saw a lot of growth in revenue coming out of the pandemic, and that's slowed. It's still growing. Economy's still growing. Sales tax revenues are still growing, just not very quickly. And sales tax is a not as big a driver in the city because 72% of the city's sales tax revenues go to Knox County schools. So property tax revenues are going up, but they're not going up, at warp speed or anything. So the city's financial picture appears to be a lot brighter than the county's, but it's still not. It's still one of those things where taking on a program like this, which is going to cost $450,000 the first year. After that, it could cost up to $1 million a year, and so they're kind of like, well, finance people are always conservative when talking about budgeting, always looking at the worst case scenarios. So,
tell me about it. When I worked at the city, the old city finance director Jim York, there were times where it felt like he didn't even actually want the rest of us to know how much money was actually available in the budget because he was afraid all of the different departments would go spend it, which, sometimes we would argue with him and say, but that's what it's for. We're not taxing people in order to just build up some big savings account. But yes, that is the orientation of finance directors for sure.
Yeah. And, Evans, like almost every other finance director that I've covered, one of the things when he talks to council members about the budget, he spends a lot of time talking about fund balance and the cash reserves the city has, and basically emphasizing that doesn't mean we can spend that money. just because we've got a lot of money socked away in these reserve accounts, that does not mean we can spend it or that we should spend it. And some listen more carefully than others to that, but that's the nature of finance directors. Politicians want to spend money to curry favor with their constituents. finance directors don't want to spend money because they're worried that things will fall apart. So anyway, bottom line here from last week was that alternative response did not get a whole lot of support moving forward. So, we'll see about the budget, but I'm very skeptical that Kincannon will include that. And one thing that is on the local agenda is a large apartment complex proposed for the Kerbela Temple site in South Knoxville. Now, as most everyone knows, the Kerbela Temple is on a bluff overlooking the Gay Street Bridge and the Tennessee River right at Gay Street, where along the south waterfront, Sevier Avenue extends to the west, or I'm sorry, to the east, and it was the site of where the old iconic JFG sign was, for people who might need a landmark, or at least a former landmark. Anyway, this firm called CR Endeavors, they're based out of Birmingham, Alabama, and they want to build a around 220 unit apartment building complex up on top of that bluff there. Most of the site right now is a parking lot. You've got the mid-century modern temple building itself, but the Shriners have been trying to sell for years. Been trying to divest themselves of it, and they've got CR Endeavors that wants to do that. It's going to be, like I said, 220 units, a large courtyard with a pool, those kinds of things. It would be marketed to what they're calling the 55 plus active senior demographic, which is basically empty nesters.
Or
Wait a minute.
It's code for.
I'm 56. Am I an active senior?
Well, you weren't active. Right? You weren't active this week, but
yeah, I'm a less active senior.
But yes,
I don't know, man. I'm not sure about this.
You would be in the demographic.
But that's developer code for we're not going to overcrowd your schools. We're not going to overcrowd your streets,
and we're not building student housing, which a lot of the South Knoxville housing has been student housing. So.
But that's the other code for we're not going to put more kids in the public school system. This is for UT students, because UT students mostly, at least, don't have kids to go into the public schools.
That's true. So, but anyway, the CR Endeavors, they have developments all throughout the Southeast. It's not, they're not a fly-by-night outfit by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, now this property is about 6 acres in size. It is in the south waterfront area. It will need variances in order to meet the South waterfront code, or form-based code. South waterfront, the code that governs development there is not based on the use of the property, but on what it looks like, what development looks like. And there are various sections of the various zones within the waterfront. Each zone has its own requirements. Build to lines, for example, where one of the goals is to make it a pedestrian friendly area, and where you would build almost to the property line, and to encourage interaction with pedestrians, that sort of thing. And this property actually is divided in 2 separate south waterfront zones, each with its slightly different requirements. And it's a little different. The code is basically written for a grid, and while the property fronts Sevier Avenue, as I said, there's a big bluff, very steep bluff, going up to where the buildable area of the property is. So you really can't have pedestrian facing buildings there. I mean, because they're going to be, it's 100 feet higher than the street level. So, but one of the things is a lot of the people who've been who were very instrumental in getting the South Waterfront Plan passed 2 decades ago have been very upset when variances have been granted to developers who have been building in the South Waterfront. It's happened. It happens a lot. The lot configurations sometimes are not conducive to the types of requirements that are in the code. So the developer was supposed to take the proposal, and they can go ahead and do it. I mean, they can, if they get these variances, they can just go ahead and build it. But they were going to take it to the Planning Commission this week, but they decided to postpone that. They held a couple of public meetings last week to talk to people about about what their plans were, talk to the public about that, let them hear from the public about what their thoughts were about their plans, those sorts of things. So they had a couple of those. We'll see if that ends up sparking any changes to the development plan. But at this point, the only thing that they need are variances to move forward. Now, the property does have utilities, underground utilities across it. Those would have to move. There's probably what they would be able to do is use the tax increment financing pool of money from South Knoxville developments along the waterfront to pay for that. They could, if that doesn't work out somehow, they could have a site-specific tax increment financing plan where they would be able to use those funds to relocate the utilities. But so that would require some extra action on City Council's part if they do that. But anyway, it will be interesting to see if they change their plans based on this public input or not, and then how vigorous the opposition will end up being when it goes to Planning Commission.
So I assume that the access to this would remain what it is right now, which is sort of a curving driveway coming up off of Sevier Avenue there toward the Shrine Temple, right?
Well, it's actually it'll be at the intersection of Mimosa and Kerbela Avenues, which is it's back off of Sevier Avenue, and so it wouldn't. You turn up off of Sevier up into this area and into that.
But they're not going to change, basically, that.
There's not going to be new roads built or anything. So
right. So my question is, what about the ghost stairs? What happens to the ghost stairs up the hill?
The ghost stairs, those are interesting. Back in the day, there were houses up there, and there are these stone staircases were built into the bluff. Of course, they aren't used anymore, and they're not all intact, but they're still there. Still kind of interesting to look at. And according to the development plan, they are going to incorporate that somehow into their plans. It's a little unclear exactly how that's going to happen, but I don't know that they would be serviceable maybe they will make it to where you could make that trek up from Sevier Avenue to the.
It'll be good for those active seniors.
Yes,
to go
yes.
up and down the
well,
stairs.
Apparently there is going to be a sidewalk up there at the top, so so that will be there could be a connection there, and really it's for whoever does live there, it's going to be kind of interesting. First of all, you have some really nice views. Most of the property, there's a little bit that would face the Regal building there, but most of it you'd be able to see, at least if your apartment opens up to the north, you would be able to see the Gay Street Bridge. You'd be able to see down parts of downtown, the Tennessee River, and you're right there where the Gay Street Bridge is. You're a quick walk from downtown. I mean, that's and it's a pedestrian bridge for now, so it's
but also nicely removed from all the and growing traffic on Sevier.
Yeah, and so it would be now one of the objections undoubtedly will be the traffic.
Sure,
because they are going to have parking there for their that's not going to be an issue. But the increased traffic there is, I mean, if you're talking somebody who's 55 to 65 years old, most people who are that age are still working, so presumably they would be people going and coming from work, to and from work, from that side, and you've got. You go down Blunt Avenue to Chapman Highway, which is just a couple of blocks away, and it's crowded. It's not it's not the least congested road in Knoxville. Of course, you go the other way. You go down Sevier. Once it's under construction right now, but presumably by the time this was built, it'll be done. That will be done. You can go over to the South Knoxville Bridge, James White Parkway, and that'd be very easy getting in and out. So, but traffic is a concern. I mean, you've got there've been a lot of apartments built right there in that area in the last decade. So
one thing I wonder, and this is not an answerable question at the moment, but having this and, of course, all the other new apartment developments there that you're mentioning, do you think that this increases? I mean, some future city leadership is going to have to decide what to do about the Gay Street Bridge, whether to really replace it with a new, fully functional, automobile accessible bridge. Having this kind of increased population there, do you think that creates more incentive or need for that? Because I know one of the challenges there is that the Gay Street Bridge, before it was closed, was not actually carrying a tremendous volume of vehicle traffic. But it seems like putting this and then some of the other new developments going on down there so close to the Gay Street Bridge might create more need for that.
Yeah, I think that it would. I think it would definitely point to a greater need. Now, whether that'd be enough, I don't know. What demographics they look at, and population densities and that sort of thing go into it. I mean, I know they always look at traffic patterns and traffic usage, and if traffic does indeed increase, and it stands to reason that it will, they'll take those numbers into account when looking at the cost benefit of replacing the Gay Street Bridge with a new motor vehicle bridge. So the moving out beyond just Knoxville and Knox County to the state legislature, a couple of education-related bills going through. One that Jesse, you reported on, the House Education Committee approved a bill that would allow religious colleges and universities to operate charter schools. Talk a little bit about that bill and its ramifications here.
Yeah, it's an interesting bill because it's only making sort of like one small-ish change to how the state deals with religious entities and charter schools, but it also points to possible further, much larger changes. Right now, a religious college or university cannot apply for a charter to run a charter school. They're just barred by state law. And so this would change that and say that they can. So if you think about like in Knox County, for example, we have like Crown College in Powell, Johnson University in South Knoxville. I have no idea if either of them have any interest in running charter schools. But if this bill passes, which it passed the House Education Committee this week with a lot of Republican support, means it's probably in pretty good shape to at least pass the House. It would allow them to apply for charters to their local school district and say, we want to open a charter school. Now, it would still keep them subject to the other conditions of existing law, which include that charter schools cannot offer explicitly religious programming. So even if Crown College, which is, a very sort of fundamentalist Baptist school, wanted to open a charter school, their curriculum, their programming during the school day would have to be non-sectarian. That wouldn't change. But what's interesting is the sort of basis for this proposed change, which we've talked about here before, is that last fall, State Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti came out and said that he thinks the entire restriction on allowing religious charter schools is unconstitutional based on some recent Supreme Court rulings about exercise of religion and public support for it. And so this is kind of the first step we're seeing the legislature take in response to Skrmetti's opinion, which of course is just an opinion. It hasn't been tested in court or anything, and this may well get tested in court if it passes. But that is what the Republican sponsors of the bill were hinging it on. And what that points to in the future possibly is coming back and saying, okay, in addition to being, allowing religious colleges to operate non-sectarian charter schools, we're just going to say that you can have a religiously oriented, explicitly religious, explicitly Christian, explicitly Muslim charter school that would be essentially entirely funded with public money, which you can't right now under state law. The ramifications here, obviously, are that Knox County Schools is currently facing a lawsuit over exactly that from this group, Wilberforce Academy, that wants to open an explicitly Christian charter school. And they're suing the school board over their, that the law blocks their ability to do that. And Skrmetti, in line with that opinion he put out in December, has declined to get involved in that lawsuit. The state is not going to get involved in defending the existing state law. And so, Knox County remains in this sort of difficult legal position right now, trying to defend a law that the state's own attorney general is not defending. So, this is just, this particular bill would not directly affect that situation, but it's a pretty clear signal, I think, of where certainly some Republicans in the state legislature want to push the whole charter program. And as one of I watched the legislative hearing on this, and as one of the Republicans on the committee pointed out accurately, because some Democrats on the committee were raising concerns about exactly that. And he said, well, we're already doing that through the school vouchers, which is, of course, true. We're using public money to pay tuition at what are mostly religious schools that the students who are getting those vouchers are going to, or a lot of them are religious schools. And so we are already funding religious education. It's just that right now there's no such thing as sort of like completely publicly funded religious education. Mm-hmm. Those are in the form of vouchers that are helping to pay tuition at private schools. But I think we can kind of see where things are going.
Yeah, and speaking of the of vouchers, the other bill that we're looking at is the House version of Governor Bill Lee's expansion of the voucher program. He wants to double the size from 20,000 scholarships to 40,000. The in the House, that proposal's been amended, and it's one of these things that they threw in a lot of stuff. You can look at it two ways. Some of the things they put in there, you think, okay, there's something in there to please everyone, but there's also something in there to anger everyone on all sides of this issue. So the amendment would reduce the total number of scholarships that Lee is seeking from 40,000 to 35,000. It'd save roughly $35 million. So, people who think that, vouchers are, expansion's too fast. Well, it's not quite as fast under the House version of the bill. The one section that would appease a lot of Republicans is that it would require school systems, again, to determine the legal status of the immigration status or citizenship status of their students. And that's something that Republicans have been trying to get through, and it's been very difficult. But
right, there's another bill specifically seeking to do that, but this one is using sort of a carrot and stick approach to it, because under the voucher program, part of the deal when they passed it was that for some amount of time, and who knows how long that time will be extended, school systems are going to be made whole by the state on any lost per pupil revenue from students leaving the public school and going to private school using a voucher, because that was one of the concerns. Is like, well, when those students leave, their money goes with them. And so the state is continuing to, kind of backfill that money. But what this is doing is saying, okay, but if you want that money, then you have to do this. You have to verify the citizenship or immigration status of all your students. So the legislature clearly really wants that particular thing to get done one way or another this year, because it's in at least 3 different bills, and who knows which one makes it through or what the final form of it is. But there's no obvious connection between voucher funding and the immigration status of students in public schools, but they're creating one anyway.
Yeah, and another provision in this bill kind of covers that concern about school systems being made whole, because it would one of the problems with this bill that a lot of people see is that it's just, or that this program is that it's not transparent. There's no data on students. This bill would require that the State Department of Education report the number of students who applied for vouchers from each county in Tennessee, each of the 95 counties, the number enrolled in public schools when applying, and then the number who were not yet enrolled in school. So it would sort of give a little bit more transparency. It's still it'll be a little less opaque, I guess is the best way to put it. But you would be able to see at least from the application standpoint, kind of the impact that that it's having on public schools. So that would that's one thing that it would do. Like you said, I don't know how the immigration status matters, but that's it. One other change that it would make is that, of course, returning applicants. If you got a voucher this year, next year you want a voucher. They're your first in line.
You go to the front of the line.
Yeah, and then the next group of students who would be in line would be the students whose household income is below 100% of the poverty level. So, in other words, if you live in poverty, you would be able to get in line. So, then followed by by higher income applicants. Of course, one of the things that we've pointed out, and a lot of people have pointed out, is that there are almost no schools, private schools, participating in the program where the $7,500 voucher covers all tuition. So someone, if there's a family, and even if they only have one student, and they qualify for a voucher, they get $7,500 of it. Well, if tuition's $10,000, you're living in poverty, $2,500 is not. You're not going to be able to spend that on the balance of the tuition. So,
also the most likely school that you could afford, the schools that are most likely to have tuition levels at or below the voucher level, are going to be explicitly religious schools, which that may meet your interests as a parent. But, let's say you are not a religious family, or you're a non-Christian family, and that $7,500 voucher, the only thing it's going to get you into is like a local Baptist school that may not be all that attractive.
Then one of the criticisms of this whole setup is that basically it's a way for middle class parents to be able to get their kids into private schools that they couldn't otherwise afford completely on their own. I mean, that's
right. Which is, again, for years and years, as this was discussed, the selling point was always, we're going to get essentially lower income students out of the low performing schools that they're quote unquote trapped in. Mm-hmm. And it's just very clear that population is not who this program is serving, and it's not really designed very well to serve them. If
they're not trapped anymore, is the bottom line. It's we're still trapped in this. This choice I have is still not a choice. I still only have one real option.
Yeah.
And as I always point out when this comes up, students in most public school systems, and definitely here in Knox County, do in fact have options even within the public school. There are magnet programs at all grade levels, and there's also a transfer option, which is not automatically granted, but if you seek a transfer to a school that has capacity, and also preference for that is given to students in low-performing schools, there are a good number of students who are zoned to what they call low-performing schools. They're schools in lower-income areas, essentially, mm-hmm. who do this right now, who attend mm-hmm. other schools. And so it's not actually the case that most students don't have options if they seek them, even without the vouchers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it will be one of the things about the voucher bill. And first of all, I want to make sure that I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. This is a story that that our friends at the Tennessee Lookout, which is based in Nashville, they cover a lot of state issues. They shared with us. We appreciate that. We do that from time to time because they're in Nashville and we're not. And so a lot of times it's easier for us to go ahead and do that. And they're always generous enough to share. That's TennesseeLookout.org. I believe it's .org. Is it .org or .com?
Boy, I don't even actually know. Just Google Tennessee Lookout.
Google Tennessee Lookout. Go there, read them. They'll. It's a free website. They're a nonprofit, and so
.com.
Thank you, Seth. So anyway, back here at home, though, the one bit of news that I think most people would consider good news came out at the end of the week. There were, in the first 3 months of the year, the first quarter of 2026, no murders occurred in the city of Knoxville. Zero, zilch, nada, nobody was murdered in the city of Knoxville the first 3 months.
Well, probably the accurate thing to say is nobody reported a murder.
Nobody reported a murder.
There's always the times where
somebody
finds a body somewhere.
Yeah. but no murders have been reported in the first 3 months. And according to KPD, and they're not even sure about this, they think this is the first time since 1988 that has been the case. I mean, in recent years, Knoxville's averaged 5 homicides in the first 3 months of the year. So that's a pretty stunning number, but it's not the only one. Crime is for the first 3 months of the year was down in all kinds of categories. The non-fatal shootings were down 82%, and robberies down 19%. 35% reduction in burglary, breaking and entering calls, a 64% reduction in car burglaries, 42% in motor vehicle thefts. I mean, crime is down all over the city. And, I think there's probably a combination of things. First of all, crime's down all over the country for whatever reason.
Right. We had the big jump everywhere during the pandemic, which there's still a lot of theories about, but not a really clear picture of what happened. And then it has been declining pretty much everywhere. There you can find some cities that are exceptions, but most places it's been declining ever since.
Yeah, and of course, the city, Mayor Buchanan, has they talk about the efforts that they've put into it. The Chief Noel, some of the changes that he's brought to KPD, where they're doing a lot more, planning, controlling, and based on data on where violent crimes tend to occur. They restructured the patrol division. They did all kinds of things that they've done at KPD. Plus, they're also fully staffed for once. So they talk about that. Also, the violence intervention programs that the city runs there, and what. I don't know. It's kind of an unfortunately named Project TLC. Where they these areas that have been that the data shows there's been a lot of crime, where KPD puts resources in there, not only more patrols but community engagement as well. Codes enforcement goes in and does things. There's just a lot of attention paid to these areas. There are 3 of them in the city. The early indications are that crime has fallen in those areas. So the city's certainly done quite a bit. It's also been helped by this national trend of lower crime. So,
well, it's obviously good news. When I saw that headline, I just thought, like, the former communications guy in me sort of winced. I mean, of course, it's a press release you put out, but that's always so, like, you put it out and you just hope that there isn't immediately a big shooting somewhere.
Oh, yeah. There's
you're always kind of crossing your fingers.
You have a mass shooting this weekend, and
right.
there you go. So,
I mean, that won't change that for those.
It won't change it won't change the first 3 months.
Yep.
It could change other narratives, but not the first 3 months. So, anyway, those were some of the things that we covered last week. We covered a lot more, both on the website and in our newsletter. As I said before, you can subscribe to Compass and get access to the website and receive the newsletter on every weekday morning at compassknox.com. For this coming week, we've got some things going on. School board's having their monthly meeting. They meet Monday to talk about agenda items on Thursday for Thursday's voting meeting. One of the things that they're going to be doing is formally terminating the Knoxville Prep Charter School agreement. The Knoxville Prep has already announced that they're going to be closing down. This kind of formally accepts that agreement. They're also going to approve the cafeteria food contract with Cisco which is, and this is something that people need to know, $11 million a year to run school cafeterias, and this is just the food. So
that is primarily federal funding. When people talk about what federal funding local schools get, school lunches and breakfast is a big part of it.
Oh yeah, so they're going to be looking at that, and also the school improvement plan for Northwest Middle School is going to be on the agenda. Then on Wednesday, there will be another candidate forum. Innovate 65 is going to host a forum focused on entrepreneurship and the economy and job creation and those kinds of things for the county mayor candidates. It is going to be at 5 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday at 121 Tech Hub in the Old City. That's down across from Barley's, essentially, in the Old City. But that's where that's going to be. Limited space, so you might want to check with folks at Innovate 65 about reserving a spot in there. On Thursday at 1:30 p.m. in the main assembly room of the City County Building, Planning Commission will meet. As I said earlier, they were going to be considering the Kerbela Temple project. That's been postponed for a month, but there are plenty of other interesting things. There'll be rezonings and land use issues. There's one kind of interesting one on a sliver of property just south of Interstate 640 in North Knoxville. An organization wants to build some housing there. It's on a steep slope. The staff says, no, you can't do that. And we'll see if they are able to persuade planning commissioners to overrule the staff and approve it. But anyway, there will be lots of other land use issues that we will be covering while we are there. So, and we'll also cover anything else that pops up during the week. And we're not fortune tellers. Who knows what's going to happen? So, anyway, that's it for this week. Jesse, keep getting better.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
There you go.
Hydrating.
There you go. Hydrate. All right. And thanks again to Seth, Lord Seth Barber, our producer. Thanks to Will Wright for providing music for us. And we will be back next week with another installment of Compass Points.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.